Hey everybody, it's your girl Dana Patrice, aka the Black Fairy, and welcome to my channel, Black Fairy Tingz, where we are currently deconstructing ourselves from patriarchy, religion, and all other things that are holding us back from being the goddesses and real women. Maybe I shouldn't say real women, but the women that we want to become. Okay, you guys know what I mean. That being said, today we are going over one of their own race, which is chapter 5 of the book I've been reading, When God Was a Woman. And we're going to do a little chapter review, and I'm going to get into all these points that I came across, and I hope that you enjoy it. Let's start with the introduction video and get right in.
Yes. I fall in love with myself, and I want someone to share it with me. I want someone to share me with me.
Okay, so great. Yesterday was annoying. This is going to be my third time recording this video, but I think I have everything set up where I won't be interrupted like the second video or like the first video, all the technical problems I was having. So we're going to move ahead. Now, one thing you may have noticed is that this video is, and I know I'm just starting it, but I already know it's going to be significantly less time than the other videos. And the reason is because my chapter 2 video for When God Was a Woman got a strike, a copyright strike. So I had to delete it or risk actually getting the strike. So I deleted it. That means that I had to look over what I could possibly do to actually review it. And what I'm going to have to do is simply just review it for my own aspect. I'm not going to share any clips, at least at this moment, of the actual book, which was what I was doing before. We would listen to the chapter. I would interrupt where I felt needed, but clearly it's triggered something in the YouTube algorithm as my videos are growing that, you know, the people who created the audiobook are not going for. So what I'm going to do is just simply move over. I have my little presentation, as I always, you know, kind of do, to show, just to like make sure I stay on track with my thoughts and things like that. I will be finishing off this book by the end of the month because I am having a book club. That's right, y'all. I put together a book club. It's going to be available on Patreon. And we start reading the very first Sunday in August. It will be our first meeting. You can click in the description box below to find out more about that by joining the Patreon, okay? So, yeah, I think that's it. Let me pull up the presentation for us. In fact, I'll just play this little recording. That actually, you know what? No, it should be okay. I have it up. Let's see. Add to stage. Perfect. Let me go into presentation style. Okay, things are working way more seamlessly here. And I'll just make it full screen since I'm not on camera anyways. Okay. So chapter 5 is titled One of Their Own Race, right? Chapter 5 of When God Was a Woman, written by Merlin Stone. So what if I told you that archaeologists uncovered thousands of ancient goddess statues, but instead of recognizing them as sacred, they called them household decorations? And what if the evidence of powerful women leading religion and politics wasn't lost to time? It was intentionally buried by men who wanted to replace those women with gods of their own race and their own image. Okay, so this is what chapter 5 is all about, of When God Was a Woman. And today, y'all, we are going to dig up the truth that patriarchy tried to keep from us and tried to keep buried in the ground. So Again, this is not going to be as long, but I tried to really get down to the chapters of it, right? So let's get into the overview. So chapter 5, titled One of Their Own Race, starts with a deeper look at what archaeologists were actually finding in the lands where goddess worship once reigned, right? So this chapter walks us through archaeologists, historians, and religious leaders that actively work to reshape the past to reflect patriarchal ideas. So these weren't vague, sorry, or confusing relics. They were actually statues, temples, shrines, and tombs that made it clear. Sorry, one moment. I don't even know where this is coming from. It's like every time I try to do this chapter, something's going on. So it made it clear that women held religious power. The divine was often female, and societies were built around honoring the feminine, right? But as patriarchal cultures, especially Indo-European and Semitic groups, began to invade, conquer, and settled in these lands, something happened, right? They knew that they could not coexist with the goddess. So they didn't just have the goddess disappear. What they did was they reinterpreted it, renamed them, and a lot of them got demoted in favor of the new male gods that were most often depicted as white, authoritative, and warlike, which is what we discuss a lot on this channel these days due to the connection that I've made to patriarchy and Christianity. It's not anything new. It was just that when I started really unpacking the patriarchy, it brought me right around back to the religion that I had left years ago, which was Christianity, right? And what I found most bothersome this time around, unpacking Christianity, deconstructing this Bible, this book, this religion, was that this God is very much like a war god. Okay, so this is where the chapter kind of title comes from. It really goes over these invading cultures that replaced the goddesses with gods that were one of their own race. In other words, the divine began to start to look like them. And Merlin Stone does a really great job of really making this come about, right? So at this point, I want to really dig into the erasure, right? And it says here on the screen, it became apparent that the female deity had once played a dominant role in early religion, but male scholars were not ready to accept this, right? So this chapter walks us through how archaeologists, historians, and religious leaders actively work to reshape the past to reflect their patriarchal ideas that we now see reflected in the world today. Think about this. Entire temple complexes devoted to female deities were uncovered, but the women leading those religious ceremonies were called temple prostitutes. I thought that was very interesting, especially when you see how like men have been villainizing us for our sexuality, trying to remove it, dim it down, and make it seem like it was unnatural towards us. So demonizing it, calling it prostitution, right on par with religious white men. So she goes into how thousands of goddess figurines were found in homes that were absolutely dismissed as fertility charms. No one asked, why were there no male figurines? Or why were female bodies the center of worship in the first place? So Merlin Stone, she really does a good job in this chapter pointing out that this wasn't a scholarly oversight. It was actually intentional misrepresentation. The goal? Well, simply to justify the shift towards a male-dominated religious system. and erase the memory of a world where women were central to spiritual and political life. And this is what's really wild to me, because it absolutely 100% mirrors exactly how patriarchy operates today, right? They're still continuously rewriting women out of the story and pretending they were there never to begin with. It's why we see so many men come up here and be like, "Man, women didn't create nothing. Women can't build. Women can't do this. Women, they're not made for it. Men have always done this." And it's a lie, right? Men simply infiltrated, stole, and took what we had, made some perverted inversion, right? And decided that women needed to be erased in order to move forward. Now, we actually do quite a lot of discussion in this. We're going to be reading more books like When God Was a Woman in my book club on Patreon. We're also going to be doing Bible studies on Patreon. I'm just going to play a quick little video about it while I get prepared for this next portion of the video.
There's a place where mystery meets meaning, where black magic and divine truth awaken. Welcome to Blackberry Tingz, where we go beyond the surface and deep into sacred questions. Inside this sacred circle, we explore the roots of patriarchy, study sacred texts, and reclaim what was stolen. Join me for exclusive Bible studies, intimate book club lives, and the magic that just doesn't make the Sunday sermon. This is your invitation to walk with power, knowledge, and spirit. Join the Sister Circle on Patreon. Your empowerment begins within.
Okay, y'all. So it's actually launched yesterday, July 1st. And I want you guys to definitely take a look to see if it works for you, and if it's within your budget, to simply join us, because I definitely wanted to create a sacred space where we could have these discussions without the infiltration of, troll eyes. But to continue, let me go to this page here. Let me go back. Okay. So what relevance does this have today? Well, the last slide was actually a quote from Merlin Stone's book, right? That it became apparent that the female deity had once played a dominant role in the early religion, but male scholars were not ready to accept this. This quote said everything, and it says exactly what you need to know about how history has been handled. And the chapter is very good. It's very detailed in regards to it. In fact, I kind of found it to be probably the most boring chapter. Maybe I don't want to say boring. I do want to use a different word. But it was hard to get through. It was because I did feel like it kind of was like a research paper in a lot of senses, like reading a research paper, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So in this chapter, we learn that we didn't just lose women's stories, right? They were actually actively taken from us. The people responsible for recording history, which were honestly mostly men, were simply not willing to accept that the world might have once been centered around feminine divinity. And I don't think it's more of an acceptance. I think they could accept it, but they didn't want that to be the knowledge that they spread. So they had to change it. I don't think that they are like, we don't accept this. I think they were more like, we don't want this. We can't have this. This narrative doesn't work for the future that we're planning for, so this can't be. So what does that mean for us now, right? Well, to me, it means we've inherited a historical narrative written by men for men in the image of men, right? This chapter really broke that down for me. And as a result, so many of us growing up never knowing that another way ever existed, that's where they won, right? So a world where the divine looked like us could never exist in a world that was led by patriarchy. Where power was not domination, but creation, that didn't work for them either. It didn't work for their capitalist structure or anything else they had in order to move forward this idea of patriarchy and setting up the world to become this system of oppression, right? So where being a woman was sacred, not suspect, was a reflection of the time. It was sacred, as it should be. Women are the creators of life. And this isn't a part of the chapter, but one of my things is that, like, one of the greatest flaws of, not flaws, probably even like, it wasn't a flaw to patriarchy because it worked quite well, was that how they put out the narrative that every man deserves a woman, when even in nature we see that women, the women in the species, the females in any species, are very selective. They don't just share DNA with anybody. Every male isn't meant to have or meant to or will ever have a significant other. And the way that they built this structure changed all of that. While learning a lot about this, I see why, right? In order to control the narrative, especially because they needed an overpopulation of men in order to dominate us. They needed to make it for the men, like where they are, again, seen as a priority, seen as something bigger. Because even in this book, we heard, like, they were weaving baskets. They were not, some places like, what was it, Ethiopia and Libya, men weren't allowed to even be in government. Kind of, it's literally a sick inversion of what we had going on. But we had our reasons, and the reasons were closely to how we find women or females dealing with the males in their species, right? Bees kick them out every winter because they're useless. They do no work. They're literally only good for procreating. So in the winter, when it gets cold and work needs to be done, they kick them out because they don't help out. I mean, does it sound familiar? Right? So I think that's a big part of it. But I'm off track. Sorry. Let's get back to the chapter. So my final thoughts on this chapter. I did find it a bit dense, right? It was, again, the hardest one for me to get through. And again, I didn't want to say, to me, I would have said boring, but I don't think boring is the appropriate word. Again, I think it felt like I was reading more of a research paper at times. But once I was able to really get through it, I think the second time, it reminded me just how far removed we are from our original story. We have been made to feel like women's power is new, like women are only just now becoming leaders or spiritual authorities. But guess what? The ruins say otherwise. The figurines say otherwise. The temples that they worked so hard to destroy say otherwise. The truth is, the world once knew what it meant to honor the feminine. And it was only through war, colonization, religious conquest that this truth was really rewritten. And the thing is, it didn't just happen in the past. It's literally actively still happening right now. Just look at how Black women's spiritual traditions are demonized. Look at how Indigenous women's ceremonies have been pretty much outlawed. Look at how women reclaiming the divine feminine are mocked. Like, just looking at this page here, especially when we get into how religion fits into all of this, how women are mocked, how they are, considered like woo-woo type of like crazy woman, definitely label the majority of us anti-Christian. And I mean, I am anti-Christian, so they're not wrong about that. Right? But basically, it's the same story. It's the same erasure. But now we're the ones that are unearthing the truth. We are now connecting back to our roots of pouring into ourselves, connecting with our divine feminine nature, and really exploring what that means as for us as a collective and as individuals. So yes, this chapter was a little dense. Okay, for me, it was. It read like a textbook in a lot of the parts, but it pretty much gave me everything I needed to see the game for what it really is, right? Patriarchy didn't just want to silence women. It wanted to rewrite God in their own image, in the image of men. And that's why when God was a woman is such a powerful reclamation. I feel like every page is kind of like, I would say that to say it in a metaphorical type of way, every page is kind of like a shovel, right? A shovel. And every chapter is like the excavation site. And what we're digging up, ladies, is our birthright, okay? A spiritual legacy that is older and goes beyond what we see and hear and talk about in history. A power that is really just still out there calling us all home. It's why you see so many women, people, yes, but women leaving these indoctrinated Abrahamic religions and religions altogether, really, and really trying to figure out, where do I come from? How do I fit in? How did the world turn up this way? I feel like it's in our DNA. We know that this is not right, how society is run, how the world is being taken care of. We are and I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it. We are literally in the times we're in the midst of a human extinction, the first of its kind, where the extinction is being led by men, right? Because they're the ones in charge. They're the ones causing the war. They're the ones who are cutting down all the forests. They're literally ruining the atmosphere with their greed, and it's completely unnecessary. But this chapter was definitely a good reflection of that. Not my favorite chapter, as again, it read like a textbook sometimes, and it read like it was like a research paper. I found myself being like, ugh, can we get to the next one? You know, just being honest, not my favorite chapter. Though again, I did find things that stood out. It's just, again, for me, I don't know what to say. I'll just leave it alone with what I've said so far. So I want to know what you guys think. If this chapter resonated with you, or made you angry, let me know in the comments. And if you want full breakdowns, the extended convos, I want you guys to join the live book club, where I'll have more freedom to do so. Make sure you're over on my Patreon, okay? I'm going to get chapter 6 done by next week, because I do want to finish this book in time to start the new book that will be starting in Patreon, right? So chapter 6, we're going to step into the realm of myth, where pretty much goddess becomes the villain and the divine feminine gets rewritten into submission. I'm super excited for this chapter. So I want to make sure that you're also subscribed to this channel, because we are not done reclaiming the goddess. We're nowhere near close. So I love y'all. Again, I really want to push the book club. So before I get out of here, I want to just say, she was always there. They just didn't want us to remember her. And I'm going to close out this video with my little Marshall again before I let y'all go. Did you play?
There's a place where mystery meets meaning, where black magic and divine truth awaken. Welcome to Blackberry Tingz, where we go beyond the surface and deep into sacred questions. Inside this sacred circle, we explore the roots of patriarchy, study sacred texts, and reclaim what was stolen. Join me for exclusive Bible studies, intimate book club lives, and the magic that just doesn't make the Sunday sermon. This is your invitation to walk with power, knowledge, and spirits. Join the Sister Circle on Patreon. Your empowerment begins within.
Yes. I fall in love with myself, and I want someone to share it with me. I want someone to share me with me.